Remote northeastern Cambodia, 1988. 9-year-old Rochom P'ngieng, the eldest daughter in a family of 7 children, is out in the fields herding water buffalo. Her parents, Chom Soy and Sar Lu, trust that she will be home for lunch before heading out to work in the rice fields that afternoon. By noon, however, the others working alongside P'ngieng realize that something is terribly wrong. That evening, they deliver the awful news to her parents. She's gone missing, and no one can find her anywhere. For the next few years, Rochom P'ngieng's family does their best to find her. As members of the P'ngieng ethnic minority living in a remote jungle village, they first turn to local shamans, who suggest animal sacrifices as a way to locate their child. After years of searching and sacrificing, the family finally accepts that their daughter is gone for good. Though the entire village mourns their loss, there is simply nothing anyone can do. For 18 long years, life goes on as the tragedy slowly fades month by month until, finally, a mysterious woman emerges from the jungle. January 10, 2007. As usual, villagers are out working in the trees all across Cambodia. In a certain remote northeast corner of the country, some begin to notice that their lunches are inexplicably going missing. After staking out the area, they are shocked to discover a naked woman sneaking out of the jungle to take their food. She is filthy, unresponsive, and scarred, and by all accounts seems completely detached from society. One detail stands out. She bears a striking resemblance to the parents and siblings of Rochom P'ngieng, so much so that the workers decide to contact her family immediately.
បាទដល់ពេលដល់អញ្ចឹងទៅបាទអ្នកស្រុកអ្នកភូមិហ្នឹងគាត់ក៏ឃើញមុខគាត់ប្រហែលថាអូដូចជាកូនរបស់លបងលូបាទហើយបន្តមកទៀតយ៉ាងម៉េចទៅណោះហើយនឹងម្ដងនេះនឹងអូយណាកូនបងលូឯនេះណាហើយនឹងណទៅប្រាប់នៅភូមិហ្នឹងប្រាប់នៅភូមិហ្នឹងថាណែបងប្អូនយើងតែយកមកទៅហៅមកបងលូណាយាដាហ្នឹងកូនបងលូដឹងហ្នឹងមុខមាត់អត់ពីណាទេកូនបងលូហើយហ្នឹងហើយហ្នឹងពួកអនុហ្នឹងមករត់មកយកឲ្យណានេះអីខ្ញុំជម្រាបលោកអ៊ំលោកពូលោកក្មួយណាខ្ញុំជម្រាបចេះហើយគេមកយកខ្ញុំតាំងពីម៉ោង 6 ព្រឹកហើយខ្ញុំមិនទាន់គ្រប់ប្រទេសទេលឺតែពីបើថាពេលហ្នឹងគឺខ្ញុំក្រោកហើយគេថាអូតែមើលគេលោកកូនឯងដឹងព្រោះកាលមុនមកឯងហ្នឹងថាមានកូនបាត់ឥឡូវគេមើលរូបរាងដូចប្អូនរបស់វាអញ្ចឹងដូច្នេះខ្ញុំទៅបាទចាំអស់រយៈពេលប្រហែលម៉ោងតម្រាំមកឃើញចាប់ពីម៉ោង 8ខ្ញុំដល់បងដល់ 8 រហូតដល់ម៉ោង 2:10 កន្លះ 8 ព្រឹករហូតដល់ម៉ោង 12 បាទម៉ោង 12 កន្លះថ្ងៃត្រង់បានឃើញមកដើរញ័រទាំងជើងទាំងដៃដូច្នេះខ្ញុំថាយកឈុតយកអាវថាអូកូនអើយនេះជាប៉ារបស់កូនហើយកូនខំរណាកូនអើយប៉ាខំរឯងប្រហែលឆ្នាំបានខែហើយរកឯងអត់ឃើញឥឡូវនេះជាប៉ារបស់កូនហើយអញ្ចឹងនៅពេលដែលលពូមានប្រសាសន៍ហៅគាត់ហ្នឹងគឺលពូ
From first sight, There was no doubt in Sarlu's mind that this was his long-lost daughter. Beyond the physical resemblance, he could identify a scar on her right forearm, which matched up with one his daughter had from a knife accident when she was very young. He was also convinced she could understand the words he spoke to her, though she would not speak back. On her return home, the rest of the family reacted much the same, completely accepting the woman and doing their best to make her feel at home. However, before she could even begin to settle in, the incredible story of a girl lost and found after 18 years began to spread like wildfire. World media quickly became fascinated with the so-called jungle girl, and within weeks, interested people of all sorts descended upon the tiny Cambodian village. Fanciful stories soon sprang up. For example, that a jungle man carrying a sword had been seen along with her, retreating to the jungle when challenged. She was also said to have been cared for by nomadic hill tribes, or even to have been preserved by the spirit of the jungle. Regardless of what had happened in the 18 years she was lost, the reality of the jungle girl's situation was that she was clearly dealing with some serious mental issues. Though she seemed aware of her surroundings and would sometimes even laugh or hum to herself, her vacant, disinterested gaze and inability to speak were as unnerving as they were worrying. However, medical resources in the area were extremely lacking. The remote province, home to over 200,000 people, had only one doctor and one nurse, neither of whom were prepared to deal with such a complicated case. Spanish psychologist and professor Hector Rifa was the first Western medical professional to evaluate the mysterious woman and would continue to work with her for years. From their first meeting, it was clear to Rifa that something was not as the reports had made it seem.
Pero tampoco está como aparece en alguna foto de los medios como si fuera una chica salvaje. Es decir, que está como una chica normal, pero asustada y desadaptada de la situación. Es decir, que se ve todavía que hay ratos pues, que está así como muy ausente, no reacciona a todo, habla muy poco y después es como si todavía lo que fuera la audición no la tiene así como muy bien, o no percibe, o realmente tiene algún problema, un déficit auditivo. Entonces esto.
Rifa was not the first to notice that the jungle girl did not look like someone who had lived in the wild for 18 years. From the start, there were obvious issues with this version of events. She had smooth skin, normal-looking hands and feet, and was skinny but not malnourished. Not at all like one would expect had she been fighting for survival in the jungle for nearly 2 decades. She had the features of a teenager, not a 27-year-old as Rochom P'ngieng would be. She also did not speak any words at all, whereas someone who had spoken normally until the age of 9 should be able to start relearning the language within days. Most concerning were the deep scars around her left wrist, a possible indication that she had been held in captivity for an extended period of time. It is apparently not uncommon for mentally disabled people to be kept on leashes in the region. Could this have been what happened to the jungle girl? Or maybe she had been kidnapped and endured such severe trauma that she lost the ability to speak. Though Sarlu swore up and down that this was his daughter and believed the scars must have come from a type of snare trap used by local hunters, the doubts only continued to grow. But there they would stay, as before a month went by, the world largely forgot about the jungle girl. For nearly a decade, the scarce reports which came out about her life described a tumultuous cycle of partially adjusting to family life before breaking down and running away, over and over again. In October 2009, it was reported that the woman had refused to eat rice for a month and was checked into the provincial hospital skinnier than when she had first emerged from the jungle. However, her father checked her out of the hospital against the advice of the medical staff. On May 25, 2010, she went to take a bath in a well behind the house and disappeared. 11 days later, she was found trapped in an outdoor toilet about 100 meters from the house, covered up to her chest in excrement. This traumatic event apparently set her development back substantially, and she stopped helping with chores and began living in a chicken coop, returning home every few days to eat a meal. The cycle of misadventures continued until July 2016, when pictures of the jungle girl were discovered on Facebook by villagers across the border in Vietnam. Just like the first people to discover her way back in 2007, these villagers knew exactly who they thought she looked like. Soon, a Vietnamese man named P'eo began corresponding with the Rochom family, claiming that Rochom P'ngieng was actually his long-lost daughter Tak, who had disappeared in 2006 at age 23 after a mental breakdown and following a long history of mental illness, meaning she had survived only 1 year in the jungle as opposed to 18. His supporting evidence was incredibly strong. P'eo was able to identify a spot on her lip, the scar on her wrist, and an ear condition, in addition to bringing 9 relatives and documentation about Tak's birth details and disappearance to support his claim. After a few meetings, the Rochom family and the Cambodian authorities agreed that he was correct. On August 13, 2016, 9.5 years after she first emerged from the jungle, Tak finally left Cambodia and was reunited with her true relatives. Both families cried watching the reunion, with her Cambodian adopted brother acknowledging that the family had come to consider her their true relative over the past decade. Though none of us outsiders can truly know the details of her life or the motives of those around her, it is more than likely that Tak, the Vietnamese Cambodian jungle girl, is still living in Vietnam and is still the same strange person that she always was.